You've spent decades raising your children, sacrificing your time and energy to guide them. But one day, it hits you. Something's changed. They no longer listen. They dismiss your advice. And worse, they make you feel invisible. It's a painful reality, one that many parents face as their children grow older. So, what do you do when the respect you once had from them starts to fade? You might feel frustrated, even angry. But getting angry won't solve the problem. In fact, it can make things worse. The truth is, the way to regain respect isn't through demanding it. It's through leading by example and redefining how you show up in their lives. If you're ready to shift the power dynamic and earn back the respect you deserve, stick around. I'll share 7 powerful ways to do just that. If you are looking for the above, let me know by commenting 1. Step 1. Withdraw from emotional dependence, a feeling of loss and new hope. As we grow older, it's easy to fall into the trap of relying on our children for emotional fulfillment. We've dedicated our entire lives to raising them, hoping they would one day return the love, attention, and care we gave them. Yet, when we find ourselves waiting by the phone, hoping for a call or a visit, the reality sets in. We can't force them to make time for us. When our children grow more independent, we often feel left behind, as though we've lost a part of ourselves in the process. The more we chase their affection and validation, the more distant they seem. This emotional dependence places an immense burden on both us and them. Instead of feeling loved, our children begin to feel pressured and, over time, they might distance themselves further. They might even view our need for emotional connection as an obligation, rather than a genuine bond of love. This creates an unhealthy cycle of expectation and disappointment. However, the moment we start to detach ourselves from that emotional dependence, something incredible happens. By focusing on our own happiness and independence, we break free from the need to constantly seek validation from our children. It's not that we stop loving them, but we learn to find fulfillment in other parts of our lives. Whether it's picking up new hobbies, volunteering, or simply enjoying our own company, we begin to rebuild our sense of self-worth. When we no longer rely on our children to feel complete, they begin to see us differently. We become more than just their parent. We become someone with a life of our own, someone who commands respect simply by being independent. And, gradually, this shift in our own self-perception will naturally inspire them to respect us more, not out of obligation, but because they admire our strength and autonomy. Step 2. Stop seeking approval from your children. When parents start respecting themselves, it's natural for parents to want to feel appreciated by their children. After all, we've spent our entire lives raising them, guiding them through difficult times, and making countless sacrifices. But over time, many parents find themselves seeking validation from their children, hoping for acknowledgement or praise in return. We find ourselves saying yes when we want to say no, bending over backward to please them, and always putting their needs before our own, thinking it will make them respect us more. But here's the hard truth. This constant seeking of approval only pushes them further away. The more we chase their approval, the more we teach them that our feelings don't matter. We signal to them that we're willing to be walked over, to sacrifice ourselves for their comfort, and that our value is based on how much we're willing to give. As a result, our children may begin to take us for granted, assuming we will always be there to cater to their needs. Instead of deepening our relationship with them, we risk losing their respect entirely. The key to breaking this cycle is simple. Stop seeking approval. Start respecting yourself, setting boundaries, and putting your own needs first. When parents stop chasing approval, They show their children what it means to have self-worth. When we value ourselves enough to say no when necessary and voice our opinions, we teach our children how to treat us with the same respect. This shift isn't about being rigid or harsh, but about reclaiming our dignity. It's about saying to our children, "I am not just your parent. I am a person with my own thoughts, feelings, and needs." And when they see this self-respect, it can inspire them to treat us with more honor and consideration. When we stop seeking validation, we start receiving it naturally, because respect is never earned through self-sacrifice, but through self-respect. Step 3. Set boundaries and enforce them. Stand firm in your own beliefs. One of the biggest mistakes parents make when their children start showing less respect is failing to establish clear boundaries. We often tolerate disrespect or allow our children to disregard our opinions in the name of keeping the peace. But this only encourages bad behavior. Without boundaries, children may start to think that their actions and words have no consequences, and the respect they once had for us begins to fade. The truth is, setting boundaries isn't about creating conflict. It's about protecting ourselves and teaching our children how to treat us. When we let them interrupt us while speaking, dismiss our ideas, or belittle our opinions, we're silently saying that their behavior is acceptable. By tolerating this, we unintentionally teach them that it's okay to treat us this way. However, when we set clear limits and hold our ground, things begin to change. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but standing firm in our beliefs teaches our children that we value ourselves enough to demand respect. It's not about punishing them. It's about teaching them the importance of mutual respect. When they see us as someone who won't tolerate disrespect, they begin to understand that their words and actions have an impact on the relationship. By enforcing boundaries calmly and consistently, we create an environment where respect is not optional. It might take time and there may be resistance, but ultimately, our children will come to respect us more for not backing down. When we stand firm with dignity and clarity, we show them that we are not to be disrespected, and in turn, they will learn how to respect us and others. Step 4. Don't argue. Lead by example. Let your children see a model of respect. It's tempting, when our children dismiss our opinions or speak to us disrespectfully, to immediately react with anger or frustration. We may feel the need to defend ourselves, remind them of everything we've done for them, or demand that they listen. But the truth is, arguing only escalates the situation and rarely leads to the outcome we desire. In fact, when we respond with anger or defensiveness, we're reinforcing the idea that they have power over us and that we're vulnerable to their disrespect. The more we argue, the more we give away our personal power. Children are quick to pick up on this dynamic. When they see us get upset or try to prove ourselves, they interpret it as weakness rather than strength. What they truly need to see is not us defending our position, but us maintaining our dignity despite their behavior. When we remain calm, composed, and assertive without getting defensive, we teach them what respect looks like. Instead of engaging in a back-and-forth argument, we can choose to lead by example. When we stay true to our values, speak with confidence, and hold firm to our boundaries, our children begin to realize that respect is not something that can be demanded or negotiated. It is something that must be earned and given freely. When they see us treating ourselves with respect, they begin to model that behavior. They understand that respect isn't about who can argue the loudest. It's about the way we carry ourselves and the way we interact with others. By leading with grace and quiet strength, we show our children the power of self-respect. Over time, they will internalize these lessons and come to see us not just as parents, but as individuals worthy of admiration and respect. Step 5. Stop giving without appreciation. End the cycle of meaningless sacrifice. As parents, we often find ourselves giving our time, energy, resources, and support without expecting anything in return. We do it out of love, hoping that our children will appreciate our efforts. But over time, we may start to feel that our sacrifices are taken for granted. The gifts we offer, whether they are material or emotional, become expectations rather than acts of kindness. And when they go unacknowledged, the feeling of being undervalued begins to sink in. The problem with giving without receiving appreciation is that it teaches children not to value what they have. When we constantly give without expecting gratitude, we run the risk of them viewing our generosity as an entitlement. They stop seeing our sacrifices as gifts and begin to expect more, often without acknowledging the effort involved. This breeds resentment, not love, because we feel unappreciated, and they feel entitled. The more we give, the less our generosity is valued. At some point, we need to ask ourselves, what happens when I stop giving? It's not about withholding love or support, but about teaching our children the value of reciprocity and appreciation. By setting boundaries around our giving, we show them that our resources, whether they are financial, emotional, or physical, are not unlimited. Our generosity should not be a constant flow that they take for granted. It is a gift, and gifts deserve to be cherished. When we stop giving without acknowledgement, we send a clear message. Respect is not an option. It's a requirement. Over time, as we begin to say no and set limits on how much we are willing to give without receiving respect, our children will start to appreciate our sacrifices more. This shift helps them understand that kindness is a two-way street, and respect must be earned, not expected. Step 6. Build an independent life. Find your own joy and happiness. For many parents, their lives have been centered around their children. From the moment they were born, every decision, every action was geared towards their well-being and happiness. As they grow older and become more independent, it's easy for parents to feel lost or disconnected, as though their purpose has disappeared. But the truth is, when we make our children the sole focus of our lives, we can unintentionally create an unhealthy dependency on them for emotional fulfillment and happiness. This emotional reliance can place undue pressure on our children, especially as they start their own families or build their own lives. They may begin to feel overwhelmed by the constant expectations or the sense that they are responsible for our happiness. In turn, this can strain the relationship and cause them to distance themselves, not out of malice, but out of a need to establish their own boundaries. The key to breaking free from this pattern is to build an independent life that is not dependent on our children. It's essential to start finding joy and fulfillment outside of their presence. Pursuing hobbies, making new friends, joining social groups, or even traveling on your own can reignite your passion for life. When we actively seek our own happiness, we begin to feel more complete and less reliant on others for validation. By embracing an independent life, we shift the dynamic with our children. They no longer see us as someone waiting for their attention or approval. Instead, they see us as individuals with our own purpose and interests. This newfound independence not only helps us regain our sense of self-worth, but also inspires our children to respect us more. Recognizing that we are capable of living a full and meaningful life without depending on them. Step 7. Accept the change in the relationship. From children to parents. As our children grow older, it's natural for the relationship to shift. We go from being the ones who guide, nurture, and make decisions for them, to watching them become independent adults who may no longer seek our advice or validation. This transition can be difficult for many parents, as it often feels like a loss of control and connection. It's not uncommon to feel hurt or rejected when we realize that our children no longer look to us for guidance or approval the way they once did. However, the truth is that these changes in the relationship are a natural part of life, and they don't necessarily signify a lack of love or respect. Instead, they mark a shift in roles, as our children step into their own lives and begin to make their own decisions. This can be a challenging adjustment, but it's important for parents to recognize that this change doesn't diminish their value or their importance in their children's lives. Rather, it's an opportunity to redefine the relationship. The key to navigating this shift is to embrace the change with grace and understanding. Instead of resisting the fact that our children are growing up and becoming more independent, we need to learn how to adapt to this new dynamic. This means letting go of the need to control or constantly be needed. It's about finding new ways to relate to our children, ones that respect their autonomy while still honoring the bond we share. When we accept the change in the relationship, we can begin to see it as a new chapter, not as a loss. By allowing our children to become their own people and supporting their independence, we can foster a relationship that is built on mutual respect and understanding, one where both parent and child continue to grow, just in different ways. In the end, regaining respect from our children isn't about fighting for it or demanding it. It's about making a conscious decision to shift how we view ourselves and how we interact with them. The truth is, respect is never something that can be forced. It is something that we inspire through the way we live, the boundaries we set, and the way we carry ourselves. When we start to respect ourselves and stop seeking approval, we show our children that we are worthy of respect, not because of our sacrifices, but because of who we are. By withdrawing from emotional dependence, we stop putting the burden of our happiness on our children. And in doing so, we create space for them to value us as independent individuals. When we stop giving without appreciation, we teach them that respect and generosity are earned, not expected. And when we embrace the natural changes in our relationship with them, we allow the bond to evolve into something healthier, one that is built on mutual understanding and respect. At the heart of it all, the most important lesson is this: respect comes not from demanding it, but from living it. The way we treat ourselves, the way we set boundaries, and the way we show up in our lives speaks volumes. When we take these steps, when we show our children that we are people worthy of respect, they will begin to see us in a new light, not as someone they must care for out of obligation,